This is Hannibal here from The Hannibal TV on YouTube. And today I have a special guest, somebody I grew up watching as a Canadian, watching Much Music. For our American fans, it's the equivalent of MTV in Canada. Much Music, then he was on Much More Music. Then he was on various local television stations doing all sorts of things, most recently a TV show host. He's also been on the radio. He's wrestled in several matches. He's even been involved in Great North Wrestling since 2007, off and on. None other than Wild Bill Welychka. How are you doing today?
I am great. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but Hannibal is one of the scariest wrestlers I have ever met. You instill fear just with your presence.
I take a great compliment to that because you've interviewed actually The Rock, you've interviewed Bret Hart, Greg Valentine. Let's start by who are some of the wrestlers you've interviewed?
Well, one of the cool thing about Much Music back then is, it was music, of course, but it embraced pop culture. And for me, growing up, huge wrestling fan as a kid, to me, part of pop culture is pro wrestling. And I was, I guess, the wrestling expert at Much Music at that time in the 90s and the early 2000s. So, yeah, I interviewed Hulk Hogan a couple of times. Honky Tonk Man, my favorite wrestler, a few times, but live on Much, The Rock. I think a picture of that interview is in his first book, actually, Rock's biography. Shawn Michaels live on Much, Bret Hart live on Much. Interviewed a lot of pro wrestlers, and that is talked about in the second edition, actually, of the new biography. And
where can people buy your biography?
It's all over the place. It's at your favorite bookstore. You can look it up on Amazon. It's called A Happy Has Been. Look for the second edition. If it's not at your bookstore, they will order it in as well. So Devin has thrown me through a table. Hannibal has thrown me through a table before. My wife Amanda doesn't really let me wrestle anymore because I have separated my pec muscles. I have hyperextended my left knee before. More than a few injuries that Amanda won't let me step into the ring anymore.
And actually, one of the events I promoted was a TNA pro wrestling event in Gatineau for their very first Canadian tour. Didn't you either wrestle or manage Jazz on that tour? Or not Jazz, which one was it? Sorry, I forget, but you were definitely on the show.
Miss Brooks, I managed her, and I forget who her tag partner was, but Awesome Kong ended up punching me in the face after.
Oh, wow. Was it Miss Jacqueline? Miss Jacqueline or something? Was that
Miss Brooks?
Okay.
And she's still wrestling. I forget her tag name. Smaller girl, Asian.
Gail Kim, maybe?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, okay, so I was their manager. What a good manager. I forgot my client's name.
Well, you know what? They beat you up after, didn't they?
Awesome Kong did. They ended up winning. My tag team won. And when they left the ring, I was still in the ring clapping for them. And Awesome Kong didn't like that and climbed up into the ring. It gave me a wicked backhand to my jaw, threw me to the mat, and then splashed me. And it's funny because Earl Hebner was helping me out of the ring, and he's going, keep selling it, keep selling it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm really hurt here.
That's very funny. Yeah, that was pretty cool that night because I know I wrestled Abyss, and Earl Hebner was my referee. And I was like marking out that, wow, Earl Hebner is refereeing me in this match because he's associated with so many of those classic 1980s matches.
Yeah, and who else was there? I think Christian was there that night.
Yeah, Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle was there. I remember walking into a dressing room and Kurt Angle was sleeping, and he gave me the meanest look, like I just woke him up. And I sorry, close the door slowly behind me. You don't want to make him mad. Yeah.
Who would have been like the meanest wrestler that you ever encountered?
You, by far.
Yeah.
By far. I know that you have used your own manager before as
a weapon. Yeah.
as a weapon.
Yeah, I've done that with several of them. Hey, you got to do what you got to do to win. Now, as far as
yeah, I've never heard of someone using a person as a foreign object before, but Hannibal has done it.
Yeah, well, actually, Kevin Sullivan gave me the idea to start doing that, and he's one of the legends that is gone now. Do you think wrestlers die younger than musicians overall, at least from the rock and roll era? I know wrestling today isn't even wrestling. It's whatever they want to call it, sports entertainment. They consider themselves athletic actors, but back in the old days, they were more like rock stars.
The Rock and I have talked about this before. The many parallels between professional wrestling and being a rock star. Yeah, there's limo rides, there's screaming fans, there's pyro, there's lighting, there's bringing people through an emotion, through an evening. You know, the best pro wrestling does that. It's storylines, it's arcs, it's up and down. A great rock concert does that as well. And yeah, there's a lot of parallels. As far as lifestyle goes, I think there might have been some parallels there in the 70s, 80s, perhaps the 90s as well, where, you know, you abuse your body. And that can only go so far. And, you know, when you look at a lot of these legends, when you look at a lot of the legends in music, when you look at a lot of the legends in pro wrestling, we have lost a lot of big names. And, you know, there are definitely many parallels between the two. And I think now when you look at it, you find that people take care of themselves. You know, there's a little bit more of a concern for your body, for your mental health. I think there's, you know, I look at it as, you know, what Steve Earle, country singer Steve Earle, once said about the outlaw movement in country music. You know, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, these amazing icons, is that, you know, what killed that outlaw movement was them starting to think of themselves as rock stars, where they're shagging more groupies than Motley Crue ever did, and taking pills, drinking, and cocaine was part of that scene as well. And you either get out of it, or that's how it's going to take your life. And the people that did get out of it, when you look at someone like Ozzy, who quit that years ago, and a lot of these older cats, and country singers.
Mick
Nothing
Jagger,
but love.
Mick Jagger too, who
Yeah.
you've interviewed.
Yeah, I've interviewed Mick, and he's a good example of that sort of person where you either stop it and get clean and live. David Bowie, I've interviewed him. We've talked about this. And if you don't, you die. And if you do clean up, you have nothing but love left in your heart for the world, for people, for your fans, for yourself. And yeah, that sort of going down that road, the entertainment road, is littered with people who have gone down the wrong way. And I think you have to figure it out. You know, maybe for the first few years, it's fun. Look at Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue, died and was brought back to life. He had a heroin overdose. And the way you live is probably going to be the way you die. And figure that out right quick.
And it's a lot easier now. Like, you're not even wrestling one day a week because there's only one or two shows a week, and they've eliminated house shows. So it's not like you're going 7 days a week, twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday, with no pay when you're injured. They also pay now if you're injured. So, I mean, in the old days, you kind of had to in certain ways.
You know, when you look at guys like the Honky Tonk Man, or, you know, the Iron Sheik, I'm talking about, you know, the 80s. It was a grueling lifestyle, because you were out there, you know, and I don't care what, you were out there maybe 5 days a week, city to city to city, touring the world. And I don't care what anyone says, wrestling is fake. You know, you talk to these guys, you talk to Jake the Snake, you talk to Mick Foley now. I've interviewed those guys as well. And they all walk the same. And it's the slow sort of limp, a walk with a limp, and it's very slow. And that's because their bodies took all that abuse for years and years. And
dug into, I'm sure you've seen Hacksaw with that walk.
Yep. Yeah. I've interviewed. Yeah. Jim, the same way. And towards the end, it was so bad with the Iron Sheik, he got around in a wheelchair. It's your back, it's your knees, it's your legs, it's your neck. Don't tell me wrestling is fake. There's some serious injuries involved.
The funny or not so funny thing that you never know really is the Iron Sheik lived to be almost 80. Yet you have Lanny Poffo, another guy I know you've met numerous times, passes at 66, always lived the clean life. And actually, his line was, I'm going to live to be 100 or die trying. And he'd make fun of Greg Valentine. And Greg,
Yeah.
who did it all, is still going. Sad. I mean, not sadly, but I mean, it's weird. You really never know who's going to go.
You could be born with a congenitive heart issue, and it might not even be wrestling related, but if that's your time, maybe that's your time. But the definite bumps to the head, the definite, I look at football players, it catches up to you, and all for what? Not a whole lot of money in most cases, but for the benefit of the fans, for the benefit of entertainment. And God bless him for providing that platform to entertain us. And let's not forget that ever with some of these people.
And of course, we just had Hulk Hogan pass away at 71. Looks like there might be a wrongful death lawsuit out of that. But I mean, he had something like 25 surgeries. What was it like interviewing him, and how did you take the news? Because I know you were a big 80s wrestling fan. So yeah, it's kind of like a piece of our childhood dying.
His arms were bigger than my waist. The guy was a monster. Always a gentleman, though, when not in the ring, not being an opponent ever of the Hulk. But yeah, just a super nice guy. And I've interviewed him a couple of times, always gracious, always, when he wants to be in character, he will be. And then immediately when he starts talking like the Hulk, you sort of stand back a little bit because he's larger than life. But yeah, you know what? We're all going to go, Hannibal. And he definitely left his mark. I know a lot of people says, well, he was this, he was that. I've heard from other people as well that he sort of made atonements towards the end of his life, almost like, he knew that he wasn't perhaps made the wisest decisions in some of the things that he has said or done, but made atonements. And, I think maybe at that point in his life when he forgave himself, perhaps we should forgive him as well.
Now, I've heard tons of wrestlers, and I can even say this because really, I don't remember too many camera phones being around before 2010 that took video. I mean, it was pretty wild party days even for me as a wrestler prior to that, and still past that, I guess. But I was seeing Ric Flair get caught doing some really terrible stuff on cell phone cameras. With you as a VJ in Canada, which much music aired Canada wide, you're interviewing all these rock stars. Did you get caught up in that scene? And is there anything in your day that any of the VJs may have got caught for had cell phone cameras been around?
I think so. I've done, when the book first came out in 2003, again, there's a second edition, came out earlier this year. Amanda read the rough draft and she goes, you can't tell people that my parents are going to read this book. So yeah, there were, I was in my 20s. There were certain things that, a lot of 20-year-olds would get involved with, or perhaps, maybe lifestyle choices that weren't the smartest thing. But, to say that I wasn't as bad as other people is safe to say, but I am here and I'm healthy and loving life. And I'll leave it at that, Hannibal.
Did any of the VJs, or maybe this is in the book, get released or anything due to maybe getting caught up too much in that type of lifestyle?
It was it was nothing like that. We were all we knew it was the best job in the world, and that you certainly don't want to piss that away. You don't want to, be dumb enough to do anything that's going to get you a bad reputation. And no, I've heard from people that, oh, I was at a party and I saw whoever there, and they were drunk out of their gourd, or whatever. I can't speak to that. I can only speak to me. And I've had girls follow me home, and I'd have to stop, turn around, and say, you know what? I'll sign something for you. Sure. You want to take a picture? Absolutely. You can't follow me home though.
I actually once had someone actually needs to get a peace bond for stalking an obsessed person, and everyone kind of joked, oh, ha ha ha, it's a girl. It's like this, it got to the point where it wasn't funny, and they were harassing everyone close to me in my life and trying to make my life miserable. Did you ever have anyone kind of go over the line like that, where you said, okay, I know it's a girl or whatever, or even it could have been a guy?
Yeah, there's, I think in wrestling, they're called super fans. Hockey players have that. I've had a few experiences, and I talk about one a long time ago where these psychosexual letters were being sent to me every day, like 12, 15 pages thick of really disturbing things. I had to do an appearance in Vancouver. Somehow one of our station's lawyers tracked down her doctor through the police out there and said, if any of Bill's appearances, if she shows up, she is not going to reach out. There'd be no connection. So Bill has nothing to worry about. Anyway, the station hired 2 bodyguards for some appearances for me. And I said to the guys, I go, look, I don't want you anywhere near me. I'm sure it's okay. You're doing your job, but I just don't like the idea of traveling with bodyguards. It looks ridiculous. Please keep your distance, guys. But I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you for doing your job. I remember at the autograph table, it was a long up, and this girl, she must have been about 12 years old, I guess, says, can I have a hug? And I go, oh, yeah, sure. Where's your parents? So they're over there. You're going to take a picture? Sure. So I got up. She came behind the table. I looked over, and the 2 bodyguards were running over. I go, guys, it's okay. She's 12 years old. I don't think this is who you're looking for. It's fine. And it's scary. And you realize a lot of it is mental health issues. And, some of them have seen doctors. Some of them maybe are off their meds. And you hope and pray that they get help.
But yeah,
and you see it with a lot of bands. They travel with bodyguards. The Hip has done it. I know the guys from the Hip. I've managed to forge these beautiful relationships and friendships with the guys over the years. And there's been some stories that I can't get into about obsessed fans. Their whole life revolves around maybe a certain artist. A lot, Brett Michaels from Poison travels with a bodyguard. They've had problems in their past with maybe fans who take that relationship between celebrity and fan a little too serious, and maybe think that they've gone beyond being a fan, that they're part of their life. And again, I think 95% of it is mental health, and it's very sad. We're not psychologists, you and I, but I do talk about it in the book as well, about mental health. I take antidepressants every day. I've recently, in the past year, had to increase my dosage just because that black cloud, I describe it as a black cloud, comes to visit. And and I say in the book, the best thing you can do is, you're not alone. First of all, it may feel like you're alone, that no one is going through what you're going through and no one would understand. No, there are professionals that do. Talk to your doctor. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train. There is help available.
Indeed. Now, the Tragically Hip, I think you still live in the Kingston area where they're from. I used to be security at Canadian Tire Center. I don't know what it's called now, but I think their second last show.
Ottawa.
There the night before Kingston, I think it was. And you actually hosted their very last show in Kingston. And I remember the sadness of the second last show, and I've done a couple other ones. They went to the National Arts Center before, I think 3 or 4 nights in a row. I think I did a couple of those nights. And I'd heard them, but I didn't realize they had done all of those songs. So it was at that point I started to respect them. But the one member that had brain cancer, and as you said, you're friends with them. Could you tell people that may not have heard about this gigantic concert that you hosted in Kingston?
Well, the city asked me to host the outdoor screening, the live broadcast that happened, and that was at Market Square in Kingston. So I said, of course, with blessings from the Hip, and 20,000 people gathered in Market Square. And you're right, there was an air of sadness that hung over the city that whole day, even the week leading up to it. People from all over the world traveled to Kingston. If they couldn't see them at the K-Rock Center, at least they gathered at Market Square to watch this giant stage and the screen and the final show. And I can't add to the canon of beautiful things that people have said and written about the Hip over the years. It's pretty obvious. I can tell you that they are all great guys. They all come from great families. They all have great families. And what a blessing to have the book forward written by Paul Langlois from the Tragically Hip as well. And I see them occasionally around town, or I MC gigs, and they might be there. They might be performing. They might be in the audience, and still see them quite a bit from time to time. But to have that final concert in their hometown go off without a hitch, that tour. And again, I talk about that air that hung over the city. It was a mixture of saying goodbye to the guys, of them saying goodbye to us. It was a feeling of us saying thank you to the band for all those albums, for all those years. And it's funny, you mentioned being a casual fan of the band and not realizing, oh, they did that song. Oh, they did that song. I think a lot of casual fans of the Hip that grew up in Canada, or even in certain markets in the US, realize when you hear the songs presented in that concert, or if you listen to the Greatest Hits record, a lot of people forget how many Hip songs you will know without even really knowing that it's the Tragically Hip.
Yeah.
And they write about Canada, sure. They also write a lot about America. Gord Downie was like a sponge and would soak up anywhere he toured and somehow would filter into a song, no matter how cryptic it might have been. And I don't think a week goes by where I don't listen to something from the Tragically Hip or any of the guys' solo records, because they're also amazing as well. One of my favorite bands of all time.
Do you have a top song from them?
I think I have a top 5 that is constantly rotating. My new favorite song by them is Pigeon Camera, but of course I love Nautical Disaster. I love Locked in the Trunk of a Car. I love Springtime in Vienna. Yeah, there's so many. Fireworks is an amazing song, and they talk about Bill Berlico in a song, and they talk about hockey, and just an amazing band. And the guys are beautiful human beings, all of them. I can't stress that enough.
Kingston is definitely very proud that they're from Tragically Hip. I think there's even Tragically Hip Drive named after them there.
Tragically Hip Way, yeah, right
Tragically
in
Hip
front.
Way, yeah. You also have Don Cherry from Kingston. Does Dan Aykroyd still live there?
He's got a home on Lowborough Lake, just north of Kingston, and he's from Kingston as well. Doug Gilmore, hockey player from Kingston. Kurt Muller, another Stanley Cup winners from Kingston. The Glorious Sons, a newish band in the past 10 years. They're from Kingston as well. Lots of music from Kingston, and it's a pretty amazing place to live if you're into live music. It's one of the few cities that still support local musicians. A lot of different bars and establishments that have stages, and it's a beautiful place to live. For those that don't know, Kingston is located right on Lake Ontario, where it meets the St. Lawrence River and the Cataraqui River. So we're surrounded by water, and of course, thousands of lakes within a 40-minute drive from Kingston as well.
Between Ottawa and Toronto, about the halfway point. But the reason
Exactly.
I'm asking you this, clearly you're passionate about it, even though you've had a bad experience recently there. The people still love you. Would you ever run for mayor of Kingston?
There's too many skeletons in my closet. I don't think so. I'm not, I follow politics. I know it's a thing where, you have to give your heart and soul and life to it. I like the idea of trying to elevate a community, trying to elevate people. I love that idea. I try to do that in my own way and always have. But as far as running for politics, I don't think so. It just seems too daunting. I'll find my own way to help people and assist people, I think.
I just associate you as like Mr. Kingston when I think of that town.
I'm very flattered by that. When Chorus cut our TV and radio last year, it was very sad. I know that's what you're talking about a bad thing happening here in Kingston. Yeah, we lost our 60-year-old television station due to cuts. And that is something that's happening right across the world in terms of media. TV is there's cuts to that. There's cuts to radio. There's cuts to media. There's cuts to newspapers. It's happening all over the place, and it's sad. So yeah, I was a victim of that. Our whole station was, and so one of the I had a couple of options. Well, I can look for another job in media. It's what I've been doing for 35 years somewhere else. But then, do I want to move from Kingston? Even though I love it so much, I need to work. But move to another market that might have a TV station that will also fold 2 or 3 years from now. I decided after 35 years to get out of the business. So I'm no longer in television. I'm no longer in broadcasting. And it's a decision that was tough to make, but one that I was sort of more or less forced to make. And I'm doing fine if anyone cares. And it's funny because I'll still bump into people. If I'm at the gas station, if I'm grocery shopping, someone will say, "Oh, we're so sorry we lost our station." They know where I'm at now in some cases, or I've had to tell people where I'm at. Total career change. I'm selling cars, Buicks, GM, Chevy products, Cadillac products. I haven't sold an Escalade yet. I'm dying to sell an Escalade. That would be awesome. In Gananoque, just east of Kingston at Gan Chev. So
you sell Cadillacs. Maybe next time the honky tonk man wants a brand new pink Cadillac.
I'll paint it personally.
I gotta ask you, I mean, for people in the US that don't know, I mean, the VJs were over. I remember in high school, I mean, if there was no YouTube, people from today won't understand it. If you wanted to watch a music video of your favorite artist, you would have to watch Much Music or try and record all day because a tape would only have 6 hours. Am I going to get that Jennifer Lopez music video so I can freeze it at the part where her ass looks the hottest?
Eventually, Much Music was in the U.S. We were in certain pockets with Rainbow Cable, I think it was. We were in New York. We were in Cleveland, I think Chicago. So, yeah, we were traveling the U.S. quite a bit. Much Music was always in the U.S. for work. I was either in LA or New York every other week doing interviews with bands.
So how were the groupies? That's what I was getting at. You were over like a rock star because you were with rock stars. You were in music, on TV, touring. How were the groupies?
I remember one kid. There was a high school tour at 299 Queen Street West, where Much Music's building was. And this kid came up to me. He goes, "Oh man, a lot of girls in my school love you. You must get laid a lot." And I looked at the kid. I said, "Well, buddy, I was getting laid before I had this job too. So, there's that as well." But, the whole groupie thing, I think, was a thing that a lot of, people might have gone through in the 70s and 80s. I think people got a little smarter in the 90s. Like I said, it was the best job in the world. Getting to travel the world, interview everyone that I was ever a huge fan of, getting to visit all over the U.S., places I wouldn't normally get a chance to be at. Same in Canada, traveling from BC all the way to Newfoundland, all the way to the Northwest Territories, in places that I wouldn't have had a chance to visit. But, Much is sending me a week to tour Canada. Sure, I'm in. Amazing memories as well. And they're all in the book.
Yeah, and you had hair like Raven. For anyone that didn't know, back in WCW, he had the long, curly hair. Did you get laid more before or after the hair? That was one of my questions when I saw that hair. And how long did it take you to do your hair in those? Yeah, please put the picture up.
Well, I don't know if you can see. Okay, so there's Slash and I, so you can see the hair there. Yeah. Garth Brooks, the hair was down to there. Bob Seger, yeah, very long hair. I think around the same time that I cut it, Jeff Tate from Queensryche got a haircut. John Bon Jovi cut his hair. I was just spending way too much money on hair care products for it to be sustainable, so I decided to cut the hair. But I sort of did it in stages. Yeah.
Now, did you have to do it yourself, or could you come to work and just have the makeup people, or were there makeup people?
There were for the news side. I would basically, you have to wear makeup so you don't shine. But yeah, I had my own makeup kit. I would do my own hair before I got to work, basically get out of the shower and shake it and let it dry. That's how I fix my hair. And then I would have my own makeup and have a brush and just do this and then walk out onto the floor. So that was the extent of my hair and makeup. Yeah, because to me, what Much Music was all about was the product. It was about the music videos. It was about the interviews, whether they were live on Much or whether they were recorded and taped. To me, so I know I've worked with some on-air people who believe they were a star interviewing a star. I sort of always fought against that mentality, where I was there. I was basically the medium between the viewer and the celebrity I was interviewing. I never looked at it as me being a star, even though I was on TV for 4 hours a day. I didn't like that idea of, considering myself a star or a celebrity. I interviewed rock stars for a living. That was it. That was pretty much it. I think people see through that after a while too. They not see through it, but see it and understand it. That, this guy's not an ass. Oh, he doesn't have an ego. He's actually has some care and concern for who he's talking to and for us and the viewers. I met some guy about a month ago. I forget where this was. It was at some show somewhere. He goes, Bill, I wanted to say for years and years.
Thanks for narrowing it down for us.
I was at the Hip a couple of weeks, or not the Hip, Oasis. I went and saw Oasis, one of my favorite bands.
Yes, which we're going to get into after you finish this story.
This guy, I met a bunch of people that came up and said hi. Hey, where are you now? Oh my God, if I get a picture. Very nice people, beautiful people. This one guy actually said, thank you. I go, for what? He goes, we were covering Woodstock 90. Well, we covered Woodstock 94 and 99. At some point, I had to do some stage announcements at Woodstock 99. Unlike MTV, not a lot of people knew us. However, when I did go out on stage to do
I saw that. It's on YouTube, fans. Check out his YouTube channel.
Some Canadian flags went up, which is beautiful. But I saw some people in the front that were they looked uncomfortable, squashed. It was hot. You can tell that they were just, ready to pass out. Security were bringing bodies over the barricade. I ran over and got some water and just started tossing bottles of water to people in the front before I left the stage. I actually met a guy in Toronto a few weeks ago at the Oasis show to say, he goes, I'll never forget this. You were the only person during the whole weekend that was passing out bottles of water to people in the front. So I said, I remember doing that. I don't remember who I was passing bottles of water to, but I'm glad you got your water. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you once asked me too, but I like to think I'm a nice guy. I do things for the community on a consistent level. But when it comes to wrestling, though, you've had me manage several people, and I always end up sort of becoming a bad guy. And you asked me one time, you go, why do you like that? And I thought, thinking about it the other day when you asked me that, I don't even remember if you remember asking me why I prefer being a heel to a face. And that is, the whole idea of pro wrestling is to get a rise out of people, make people cheer, make people boo. And I think the people that boo louder than the people that cheer the good guys. And to me, getting a pop out of the audience is what it's always about. And when you can get booed loud, you know you've done your job. And and I have no problem being that guy.
Actually, there's one video of Lady Yasmin beating you up in Kingston. It has, if it's not at 1 million, it has like hundreds of thousands of views. I actually posted several versions of it. So you did your bad guy job well in that one for it to have that many views.
I think she ruined my blazer too. Tore off my blazer, I think. Yeah. After
there you go.
Yeah.
Do you mind giving us any clue? When I was watching your Much Music, it's like, are you paid by the hour? Are you on salary? How does that work? And what kind of salaries are we looking at, if you could ballpark it?
In the 90s, I was making close to 100 grand a year. What was amazing though is we had such an amazing library, you know, and it was all on videotape, of course. A few years ago, they started to digitize all these old classic videos because no one knew really how long videos were going to last. The oxides were off. They're gone forever. Some of these classic interviews. But every now and then I'll get an email from someone saying, hey, I'm watching this Marilyn Manson documentary. They're using an interview of yours. Do you get paid for it? Someone said, I saw this John Bon Jovi documentary and I saw you in it with an interview. So a lot of these independent production companies know about this amazing library in Toronto, Canada, and are accessing these amazing interviews throughout the years for these documentaries. I hope Oasis comes up. I've interviewed the guys a lot. There's an Oasis documentary on Netflix. Hoping whoever production company that is using those interviews. But they go, did you get paid for those interviews that come up years later? The answer is no. I was salaried. I was an employee of Chum Limited, which ran Much, owned Much and City TV. So if I did an interview with Mick Jagger, that was my job. It was salaried. If anyone pays to use that interview years later, that money would now go to Bell Media, who retained that library. So, no money from back then, sadly.
Were you ever in acting or anything based off of your VJ job? Sorry.
There's been a few roles that I've said yes to where I played a TV reporter, big stretch. But earlier this year in March at the Kingston Canadian Film Festival, it was a film called Still Alive in Kingston. Basically, the director wrote a very rough draft based on the first book. So I play myself in this person who lives in Kingston in television, who loses his job, which predated that it actually happened in real life. So it's art imitating life, imitating art. It was really weird. But it's a full-length feature film that debuted in Kingston at the film festival. Rob Baker plays himself in it from the hip as well. It features, so it's loosely based on my life, except in this film, I try and get back to Toronto to be a big star again. But in real life, I don't. But what I love about this film is that the thread throughout the film is the Kingston music scene. And so it features real interviews with these bands that I'm doing for the film, real performances. And the idea is that I'm shooting all these performances for a new TV station that is in Toronto, which is all fictitious, but the interviews are real, if that makes any sense. So yeah, it was a sold out screening. The director is doing several screenings across Canada at different film festivals. I don't know where it's going to end up, but yeah, so that's the closest I've come to a full-length feature film, is playing myself, which is pretty easy to do. The hardest part about the movie is just remembering lines. And, the director had this way of communicating with me, is after a scene or performance, he'd go, okay, good. 20% more. I think about that. Okay. All right. So I would give him 20% more. And then it was an amazing experience. It's a love story. It's a comedy. It's a pseudo music documentary for Kingston. Yeah. Jay Maddaw is the director. It's called Still Alive in Kingston.
Well, I just finished filming my first self-funded movie, Blood Hunter, Thirst and Rage. So if there's a part 2 and we need a reporter, I know who to talk to.
Is it a documentary or is it a?
No, it's a fiction wrestling / vampire movie.
Blood Hunter, one of your characters.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So we'll see how it goes. It's coming out on Halloween.
Streaming, I am definitely going to look for it.
So as far as Oasis goes, one of my favorite bands too. What
awesome.
Were they like to interview, and how were they when they came back to Toronto?
Well, first of all, the Toronto show, like this whole tour, this reunion Oasis tour, Live 25. It's if you haven't seen them yet, or if you wanted to see them and couldn't, it is everything you want it to be. All the hits are there. It's Liam and Noel are back. Bonehead's on stage as well. Gem from the later years in Oasis, the guitar player. It's a flashback to the 90s in some cases, but they do all the hits, the favorite album cuts. They're amazing. I've been interviewing Noel and Liam since the mid 90s, and I love Oasis. And Liam ended up getting this reputation of hooligan. He made a lot of interviewers cry. I've had nothing but great interviews with Liam over the years. The last time I interviewed him, he even gave me a hug when he came out to see me. But I love Noel. I love they're honest. They're completely honest. They're just, I love the music, and I love them as human beings because they're just so funny. They are so funny. I love them. And I was reminded of that on YouTube. Much Music recently posted a series of interviews, and it's under Much Rewind, of raw, uncut interviews. It launched like a month ago. They're starting with 5 or 10. Anyway, one of those interviews they posted, the raw, uncut interview, is of one of my Noel Gallagher from Oasis interviews. And I remember watching it just recently because I'd forgotten about it. And it sort of solidified what I always thought, and that Noel Gallagher should be a comedian. He's just so funny, and he's completely honest. If you ask him about drug use, he'll talk about it. You ask him about the Spice Girls, he'll tell you why he doesn't like them, and he doesn't hold back. Liam is the same way. So I love the Gallagher brothers. I'm glad they're back, and I'm glad I got a chance to see them one last time.
I saw an interview with David Bowie not too long ago. It was from the 80s, but he was obviously on, I believe, cocaine in it because he was really having problems talking. And I don't know, he was showing a lot of the signs of it. Have you ever interviewed anyone that was under the influence and was difficult to interview because of that?
I can't prove it. I suspected in some cases that they might have been on something, but no, you don't know. You can't prove it. I didn't see it, so yeah, I'm not about to say it. But yeah, there's been a few cases just before a band has gone on stage. Well, I interviewed them and interviewed someone, and they were a little fidgety and rambling, which are usually good signs of someone that might have had a snort or two. Never outrageously drunk or anything like that. I've always had always really good exchanges, and and it's sad that if that has ever happened, those videotapes are out there because, yeah, I don't think any artist wants to be remembered in a specific way like that. When I've interviewed Ozzy many times, the Much Rewind YouTube channel also has one of my interviews with Ozzy on his jet. Spent a few days with him and Sharon traveling Long Island to Philly, I think it was.
Oh, please tell us more.
Well, Ozzy admitted in one of the interviews that the amount of medication he's on to combat the years of drug abuse is incredible. And when people say, "Well, how do you understand him?" Because he talks like this, sometimes you don't know what he's saying. That's the way he talks, and he admits it's from years and years of drug abuse, even though he doesn't do it anymore. The long-term repercussions were there. And I've had no problem understanding what he is saying. Ozzy has what Ozzy is saying just because of the way he talks. But again, there's another great example of someone who is with us a lot longer than expected. because of the years of drug abuse. And they're all famous stories. And he says basically every single bad thing that has ever happened to him is because he was drunk or high. And so, do the math. You take out the drugs and alcohol, and your life is probably not going to have as many bad, embarrassing moments in it. This has turned into an anti-drug message. So.
Yeah, well, I read in his book, I think, or maybe it was one of the documentaries, he used to wear like a chain around his neck with a vial that he would just unscrew, and it was always at least 3-ish grams in there, and people would just keep reloading it. But that would kill like your average person, and for him, no, this is just what I walk around with.
Well, and it's true. You hear about some artists getting clean, maybe for a month or 2 months, and then going back, and that first dose back, man, the body can't handle it. Maybe it built up some tolerance to it, and you had to increase your drug intake. And if you stop and then go back to it, it's like a shock to the system. And I think we've lost a lot of artists like that over the years as well. And so thank God Ozzy never did go back to it.
Yeah,
on that level. Yeah.
And as far as Tyra Banks, you got to kiss her hand at one point. How was she?
She was fun. I remember she was that week on the cover of Details magazine, I think it was. Yeah, we were in Monaco together. I was in Monaco kissing Tyra Banks. Yeah, that was at the World Music Awards. I was fortunate.
You were paid for it. Like, oh God, what a job!
6 years in a row, the World Music Awards, and yeah, in 1 week, you'd be interviewing Britney Spears and Ricky Martin and Tony Bennett and some supermodels.
Is it true if Ricky Martin's gay or not? I never figured it out.
He's admitted he is.
But does he take girls too? Or
I don't know. I think he has a husband now. He's never hit on me. So when people were saying, "Do you think Ricky's gay?" I'd say well, he's never hit on me. I've interviewed him a bunch of times, but I don't know. But no, I think years later he has come out and he has a husband now, I think. So yeah, but those trips were amazing. And you catch yourself at a pub with the cameraman. I'm not, you would cover these champagne receptions and go to the Palace and cover these parties. But at the end of the day, I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there, to go find a little Irish pub somewhere and sit at the bar and hang out with the bartender for the week at the end of the day. That's more my speed. But that's when you sort of think about the day that just happened. You think, yeah, this is the best job in the world. Very nice. I'm blessed.
As great as it is interviewing like the Mick Jaggers or the Britney Spears or the Motley Crues or the Aerosmiths, are you almost happy when it's over to be like, okay, I did it. I didn't screw it up. I get to go to the bar now. Like, as fun as it is, are you relieved after?
Yeah, I remember it's not digging ditches for a living. It's not physical hard labor. Mentally draining in some cases because you have to be on. And so you're sort of spent and exhausted that way. But I remember Johnny Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls one year in Monaco, sort of the same speed as me. He'd have to do these parties and go to these events and before a big award show at the end of the week, before the big, and we'd end up going to the same bar and hanging out drinking at the end of the day. This little Irish pub we found in Monaco in the middle of all this glitz and glamour, casinos and stuff. But I remember one night, I think I talk about it in the book, explaining to him, because the Goo Goo Dolls played some shows with the Hip in the US. And he goes, I don't understand them. I don't understand why they're so big. What is it about the Hip? And I remember schooling him. I remember explaining to him what makes the Hip so good and why they are so dynamic and why they are, just amazing musicians and why they're Gord Downey's an amazing poet. And I remember that night at the bar trying to turn him on to the Tragically Hip, and whether or not he ended up becoming a Hip fan, I don't know. But yeah, it's those moments that I love, those sort of when it's all said and done, you can look back and reflect. Those are the happiest moments for me. They've always been like that. I do talk a lot about the past. I do in the book. I have to. But I also don't like to live in the past as well. I think that's important to say. as well. It's nice to remember. I like to look forward to the future in most cases. I think it's more exciting, but I don't mind talking about the past if someone is curious about it.
Well, easier said than done in some cases. What would be like your top 5 favorite interviews?
Specific interviews. I can mention specific bands. I love The Cure. Huge fan of Robert Smith. I've spent the day with them in New York before. I've interviewed Robert Smith many times. Always a great interview. I'd have to say The Cure is up there. All the members of Led Zeppelin, well, the remaining living members, Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, Jimmy Page. I've interviewed all those guys at separate times. So I'd say Led Zeppelin is right up there. I love the Hip. Oasis is certainly in there. Bowie's probably another favorite one. Jagger, Madonna. I'm not a huge Madonna fan, but it was a fun interview. It was great. I think I passed 5.
Did you manage to kiss Madonna's hand?
Did I kiss her hand? I don't think I kissed Madonna's hand. I've kissed Lisa Marie Presley, if that's important to you. I've kissed Shania Twain.
A few of them, yeah, definitely on the cheek. A couple of them, or been kissed by a couple.
Yeah, I think Janet Jackson as well, maybe. I know in your typical way, you're going to ask if I slept with any. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to.
My typical way. Oh my God, are you trying to accuse me of being TMZ-ish?
You were going to ask that, weren't you?
Do you believe Ric Flair slept with Halle Berry?
I can't see that. Who admitted that? He did? Have we heard
Flair
from her?
Claimed it and she denied it.
She denied it. That's a good question. Ric Flair, huh? You know, what a life he had.
Lance Von Erich said he slept with Bo Derek, which I do believe.
I would see that. But, you know, Ric Flair, women were literally throwing themselves at him and trying to get into his limo throughout the 70s and 80s. And, you know, I think the Nature Boy still has it, too, as well. That's going to be one we're going to be sad that we missed.
Yeah, he's there's very few legends left. Do you agree that like there's John Cena's about to retire, The Rock still looks great, he probably has a few more matches in him, but there is no like upcoming Hulk Hogan or Steve Austin. It seems like no one's a clip. Roman Reigns is the closest, and he's in his 40s.
It's easy for us to say that, I think, because we've lived through those larger-than-life characters, and we are comparing what's happening now or recently to those icons. I think when you're a younger person, you know, that's John Cena to them. That's The Rock to them. That might even be Seth Rollins to a young person. We have the benefit of being around a little longer and seeing the changes and seeing the growth and seeing a lot of these legends retiring. And but what's neat to see is when Ric Flair does come out, the pop he gets from young people even. And I think that's what's cool about wrestling is young people do their homework. They do know their stuff. I think that's important as well.
Because in the 90s, like we weren't bringing back Lou Thez. But now it's like we're bringing back people from decades before.
That's the importance of the Hall of Fame, I think, as well. You know, reintroduce perhaps a whole new generation to who some of these wrestling icons were and how they helped shape the industry. And A&E is doing it with a bunch of different specials now that when they've paired with the WWE. I love watching these old documentaries. I love seeing that old footage of basically no lighting. Just a couple of lights aimed at the ring, shot on film. That old, you know, Madison Square Garden footage of early WrestleManias. It was night and day, the presentation compared to now. I love seeing that old footage. Speaking
of no lights around the ring, the one thing that drives me crazy is now run-ins. They get their own music and Titantron. It's like, is this not supposed to be a run-in? Can we not at least have no entrance for a run-in?
There's a camera there and a guy ready for the audio. Yeah. I've always laughed when someone is in the middle of cutting a promo in the ring and all of a sudden they get cut off by the entrance music. So I'm in my mind backstage, I'm thinking, okay, so that wrestler has just went up to the control room, said to the guy, okay, hit my music, and then I'm going to run down through the curtain. It's so well
Wouldn't that
scripted.
warn them? Or the guys in the ring just don't hear it. Anyway, it's things like that I mean, part of the craft, they always like to talk about it, is making people believe or suspend their disbelief. And it seems to me like that part of, if you want to call it an art, is forgotten.
No, it's true. One of the things that is consistent when you're talking about, a traveling circus setting up a wrestling ring, in a small town somewhere, even going back to the early 1900s, one of the things that has never changed in the presentation of pro wrestling in the live element or even televised is immediately, who the heel is, who the face is, there's a story that has been created. They're going to get the audience involved. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster up and down. And then at the end, you're either going to scream with joy or you're going to boo, depending on the result of the match. And that will never, ever, ever change with pro wrestling. It's how you get from the entrance to the walking out part that's always fascinated me with the presentation of wrestling. And you don't know where it's going to go. And in some cases, the wrestlers are improvising during the match, trying to get from this point all the way to this point. And I just love that process in between. To me, it is the ultimate art form.
You should apply to be a WWE writer. I have a feeling like you're the type of guy that they would hire for that.
I'm sure I feel I had my way. The honky tonk man.
I'm dead serious on that.
The honky tonk man would be the back to being the Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion.
I mean,
the heavyweight champion of the world.
We won't even get into Gunther can't lace honky's boots. It's just not comparable to two. But before we go, I got to ask you about the boy band era. Can you give me a summarization of like, what are your thoughts on that huge boy band era that happened in the 90s and even the late 80s? It started with New Kids on the Block, and any stories related to any of them.
I think boy bands have always been there. When you look, in the 70s, it was Bubblegum with the Bay City Rollers, it was called. And then the boy band sort of was introduced with New Kids on the Block, you're right, in the late 80s. And then, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and LFO and so many of them.
Toronto had Before 4.
I remember those guys. So how clever was that? There was 3 guys. So what's Before 4? The number 3, and there was 3 guys. So yeah, I remember Before 4.
I never even thought of that, but they had If You Get Down on Me, I'll Get Down on You.
Yeah, they've always been there, and that pop scene comes and goes. But one of the things, it's not the kind of music that I would go home and listen to. But after interviewing the Backstreet Boys for so long and Justin Timberlake a few times over the years, I didn't go home and listen to them, but I did develop a respect for them because when you look at their schedule, how hard they work, they're always on a plane, and
their radio interviews, it's crazy.
The touring, radio interviews, magazine interviews, not just Canada, not just the US, of course, every country in South America, almost every country in Europe, they were always going somewhere, very little break. And that's the push an album, tour it, get ready for the next album, maybe a 3-day break, and then that cycle constantly on and on and on. And in many cases, not knowing, but signing shitty contracts where you would think they've all been multi-billionaires by now, but no. Record company took a piece, agents took a piece, managers took a piece, publicists took a piece, and some pretty shitty deals, I think, early on with a lot of them. But just that work ethic, I respect anyone with a solid work ethic, and those guys, man, definitely had it. So that's my take on boy bands. Not my kind of music, but all the respect in the world to them.
Whatever happened to Lou Pearlman?
He died.
He's dead now. Interesting.
Yeah. Talk about Yeah, someone who really knew the business to the point where he was a smart guy, a genius in terms of making money and how he would make that money, sometimes fraudulently, with hype, and really not taking care of his properties, but taking from them over the years. You know, some would accuse Colonel Tom Parker of Elvis like that. Some would say that without Colonel Tom, we'd have no Elvis. So, you know, there's two sides to every story.
I heard Tom would not even allow him to leave the US because when he was struggling towards the end, he could have been huge in Europe and he's still playing the same towns.
I believe that, yeah. And unfortunately, we'll never know, because that was another, when I talk about the entertainment road being littered, Elvis was certainly a victim there as well. And his daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, I was a huge fan of her, not just because she was Elvis's kid, but I really loved her first couple of records.
Is that the one celebrity that you alluded to earlier? They have joined the club.
I love Lisa Marie. I remember having a crush on her in the third grade because we're roughly around the same age, and always seeing her in the tabloids and thinking she was the prettiest girl in the world. And she grew up to be one of the most beautiful women in the world. That loss really affected me because no one saw that coming. But again,
she's dead?
Yeah, she passed away a couple of years ago.
Of what?
Lisa Marie Presley. Heartache because we never carried our relationship further, I think. No, I don't know what it was. What
are your thoughts on the whole Michael Jackson stuff? I know he was married to her, but like, is the controversy around him, is there merit to that, or is it all just he was just a strange guy, but there was nothing more to it than that?
Who's to say? I think she claims there was a relationship. Others claim she was trying to get him into Scientology because she was a Scientologist, and who knows? In some cases, I think when you're that big and that known around the world, you're living under a microscope. I don't know how anyone could survive that to that level that those two had to deal with. So there's something to be said for, a lot of these people that are still here. I don't know how they did it. Good for them. Because look at, both of them, microscope on them their whole lives, Lisa Marie and Michael, and look at where they are now. Not with us.
I saw the Monaco video where you're in the presence of Michael Jackson and it's pandemonium.
Yeah, that was weird. I talk about that in the second edition. I don't think I did in the first one, but yeah, that was the way he would move from the car to the palace through a crowd. It was down to a science where he would envelop himself around a group of people and then a second group of people and then a third group of people in some cases, because the crowds would just descend. But it was funny because he was traveling with his own camera person. And this is the point in America or North America where his popularity was waning. And so he was sending this footage back to the news outlets in America to pretty much say, look how big I am in Europe. Look at me. I still create pandemonium. And this is in the middle of, or just before all the allegations were coming out. But yeah, to see this unfold with your own eyes, 5 feet away, cries, people crying, people screaming for Michael. And there he is, just, doing a little wave, walking by me like that. It's a pretty weird thing to see, and not a lot of us get to see up close. You might have seen it on TV, but to actually see it unfold all around you, it's pretty weird thing to see. I mean, I often wonder, if you're Catholic and you think if Jesus is going to come back to earth one day, he's supposed to, is he going to create that commotion with tears and people trying to reach out, or have we as a society put people up on pedestals that maybe don't deserve to be put up on pedestals? I don't know, I'm just throwing questions out there. I don't have the answer. But
What do you think of Corey Feldman, who still dresses like Michael Jackson?
I've seen some of those YouTube videos. Someone that's grasping at his youth, and he claims he has millions of fans. I don't know, but it's sad. I think at some point, just realize, be grateful for what you had. Don't try and continue it.
You're not a fan of his music. You're not working out to that.
If I do watch it, if I fall down the rabbit hole of Corey Feldman videos, because it's like watching a train wreck and you can't take your eyes off of it.
I literally, there's very few people I can honestly say I actually couldn't listen to it, but he's one of them. There's also one of the bad guys from Home Alone that was also in Goodfellas. I forget his name, but he put out a record. It was awful too.
But it's funny, we talked about ego a little while ago. Like at some point, isn't that inner discussion take place where it's like, I have really nothing to offer anymore. I'm not going to try to be who I was 30 years ago anymore. Doesn't that happen? I think with most people, with some of these people whose egos are so big, I don't think they have that inner dialogue. And it just gives, TMZ stuff to talk about. It gives people like us something to talk about. Who knows?
Now, one underrated band is the West Texas Rednecks. What did you think of them, their feud with Master P? And did you ever interview any of them from WCW? They had Rap is Crap.
Oh, I didn't know too much about them. Like Master P, the real rapper.
They feuded with Master P and the No Limit Soldiers, but they actually they were supposed to be the heels, but they got popular and people were cheering them. So then they just dropped the whole angle. But it was actually kind of cool.
I didn't know that. I don't remember that.
Okay. You were more of a WWF guy.
Yeah, there were periods. No, I would watch, especially as a kid. I wasn't elite. We didn't have WWE growing up in Toronto. We had Maple Leaf Wrestling, which was sort of NWA territory. We would watch, I think, AWA broadcasts. And Stampede Wrestling was also sort of in Calgary at that time. So, yeah, I grew up. I wasn't really faithful to any one particular promotion, but I'll flip by TNA every now and then. Impact. I'll watch WWE every now and then on Netflix.
Well, Impact's pretty much been absorbed by WWE now. They're basically a farm system.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't pay attention as much as I should. It's not appointment television like it used to be for me anymore. Sadly, I'll still tune in, but I couldn't tell you who the current. Is it still John Cena, the current champion?
Nah, Cody Rhodes just beat him because they switched it because his heel run wasn't going that great, and now the big talk is Cena's facing Lesnar soon. So
Cody has it back now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I interviewed Cody here too in Kingston.
Oh,
cool.
The last time WWE probably is ever going to go to Kingston was that time, because now they're not doing the smaller
cities
anymore.
They've been here once before, but the same day in Kingston, I interviewed Sheamus and Cody Rhodes. I want to say 10 years ago here in Kingston. Oh. And I gave Cody a CKWS TV t-shirt. He was so grateful. He said, because when you're on the road, you need fresh t-shirts all the time because you're always going to the gym. You need fresh t-shirts. So he was very grateful he had a new fresh t-shirt to wear that day.
Did you have a favorite wrestling match that you attended as a fan?
Seeing you in Morrisburg. I forget who your opponent was. He had kendo sticks. That was the first time I saw
something with a K.
That was the first time I saw you in person at a match, and just how terrifying you were. Who else was on the card that night? Oh, that was Greg the Valentine. The first time I met Greg the Hammer Valentine. But I remember watching you. You were bleeding. And it looked like you were talking to yourself because your lips were always moving, and you weren't talking to your opponent. You were, and then I think at one point you went over to our camera and went to do this, and I think there was some blood you got on the cameraman's shirt. It was hilarious. But yeah,
Hard
you
to
were just
believe that was 18 years ago, man. Where the hell does time fly? That was like
2000.
2007. That was
Wow.
2007.
You're right.
Where does time go?
Wow, that is freaking me out. Yeah. But that was the first time that I remember seeing you and thinking how terrifying you were. As an adult, as a kid, you're supposed to give that impression to a kid. But when I'm an adult and I'm terrified, that's pretty amazing, Hannibal. As a kid, you're supposed to be terrified of the bad guy. That's a given. But as an adult, you're not supposed to be terrified of another human being or a man. But yeah, you definitely have that skill.
I'm in the process of finishing off a book that I've been writing since COVID. And we actually have the whole thing written with my co-author. Now we're just touching it up. Any suggestions, author to author?
I think like any wrestling match, you want to leave people feeling something, whether that's empathy, whether that's something they've learned about life by reading your words through your experiences. And overall, I think when they close the book, to leave them feeling something positive, I think is important. And, sharing the things that you don't think other people have gone through ever. Give them some experience to read about where they can't believe that someone has lived that experience or lived that kind of life. I think those are the best biographies for me, where you walk away, you've learned something and you felt something.
Well, I appreciate that. I can't even believe that I'm alive, actually. Now that you mentioned that, I'm very blessed. I definitely believe in a higher power of some sort is protecting me for whatever reason. I haven't accomplished what I'm here to accomplish. I think you still have more to accomplish as well. But if people want to read about your history, is your book available on Audible yet? And where can they get the hard copy again?
I've been asked about that. It is available in hardcover and paperback. Bill Welychka, BILLWELYCHKA, BillWelychka.ca. You can Google Happy Has Been. That's the name of the book. Look for the second edition that came out earlier this year. And you can order it. You can get it at bookstores if they don't carry it. And partial proceeds go to the White Ribbon Campaign, which is men coming together to end men's violence against women.
Where does this Happy Has Been come from? What situation were you put in where someone actually called you a has-been?
After Much Music and Much More Music, which were national services here in Canada, I went to Edmonton to host a local morning show for a year. And then I went to Ottawa to be a weather announcer for 5 years and host a morning show there. And a coworker once called me a has-been just because I'd gone from a national level in a major market.
As a joke or as an insult?
He was jokingly insulting me.
Was it JJ Clark?
No, it wasn't JJ Clark. No.
Was it Carol Ann Meehan?
No, wasn't those guys. Those guys were CTV. We were still chum.
Come on. Tell us. Someone one of us will know.
He was a behind-the-scenes guy. You would know him. He was a producer. And it hurt, but then I started to think about it, and a lot of the...
Why would he say that? That's like the meanest thing you could say.
Well, it was his stupid sense of humor, I guess, trying to get a reaction out of me. But so when I called the book A Happy Has Been, it was sort of a nod to that. And my realization, and this came out a lot when I was promoting the first edition of the book, was a lot of people were talking about the title. And I said, you know what? In the 90s, if you heard the name Bill Welychka, you knew exactly who I was, where I was, what I was doing. Fast forward 10, 15 years after the demise of Much Music, you mentioned my name, you're going to get a reaction of, I remember that guy. Yeah, whatever happened to him? Where is he now? He's a has-been. There are also people who followed my career from day one to this day as well, which freaks me out and blows my mind, and I'm very grateful. So the title to me encompasses all of that. The most important part of the word is the word happy as part of that, because it is a nod to where I am now versus an acknowledgement of what I did in the past as well. So I think it's a funny title. I think it's a great title, and it does get a reaction, which, like any good wrestling match, should do.
And I don't think you're a has-been because, first of all, you're an interviewer mainly. That's of course you did stunts, you did skits, all kinds of stuff on the side, but it's like you were never the star of the show, and you could still jump back in to interview people for any company at any point in time. You haven't lost those skills. You still look good. You still have a full head of hair, and I think I'm glad that you have the job at the Chevrolet dealership, which I'll put the plug up again now. But I don't think you're done in the entertainment business. That's my personal thoughts on you, and I'll let you close this off. It's always been a pleasure knowing you. Hope to have you back on again sometime. Say whatever you want to the fans to close this off, good sir.
Well said. Thanks for acknowledging that about the interviewing, because that's all I've ever said that I've done my entire career is interview people, and I draw that out all the way to what I'm doing now, which is someone comes in looking for a vehicle. I interview them. Tell me about your lifestyle. Do you have kids? Do they play hockey? What do you do on the weekends? You want to be able to get to know someone to find out what their needs are, what their wants are. Financially, do they need help? How can we help you? And so that's what I do as in sales, is interview people. And I love that comparison, that I'm basically still doing what I did 37 years ago, is interviewing people. Much like you've done your entire career, Hannibal, and that is entertain and bring people to an emotional level.
Yeah, and just to throw in here quickly, it's not like you're a has-been, because you can still do what you've always done.
Exactly.
You're not like me. I can maybe for another 5 years I can do this, but I can't be what I was that night in Morrisburg forever. You could still do this.
Wow, well said. All the respect in the world to you. I thank you so much for this time, and thanks for many, many years of entertainment.